Welcome to Hashtnagar Digital. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. February 3, 2026, a day that will be remembered for a seismic shift in U.S. trade policy. In the early hours, as the city awoke, a decision was handed down that would reverberate far beyond the marble steps of the Supreme Court. The ruling marked not just a legal turning point, but a moment that will shape the economic and political landscape for years to come. The Supreme Court has just overturned the Trump-era tariffs, dismantling a cornerstone of the administration's aggressive trade agenda. For years, these tariffs have been at the heart of heated debates, protests, and international disputes, affecting everything from manufacturing jobs to the price of groceries. The court ruled the president overstepped by using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to wage a sweeping trade war. This law, originally designed for national security emergencies, was stretched to its limits, until today, when the justices drew a clear line in the sand. This isn't just legal wrangling, it's a decision that impacts the price of everyday goods, global alliances, and the balance of power in Washington. For millions of Americans, it could mean relief at the checkout counter, while for lawmakers, it's a wake-up call about the limits of executive authority. The tariffs, including the sweeping Liberation Day duties and the threatened tariffs against European allies over Greenland, are now invalid. This sudden reversal has sent shockwaves through the business community as companies scramble to adjust to a new reality. Businesses that paid billions may now seek reimbursement, and international partners are breathing a sigh of relief. For some, this is a long-awaited vindication. For others, it's a moment of uncertainty, as they navigate the fallout and look for new opportunities in a rapidly changing market. The ruling is being hailed as a powerful check on executive power, reasserting the rule of law in trade. Legal scholars are calling it one of the most significant decisions on presidential authority in decades, setting a precedent that could influence future administrations. Modern life depends on global supply chains, and these tariffs disrupted that system, raising costs and straining alliances. From electronics to food, the ripple effects have been felt in every corner of the economy, highlighting just how interconnected the world has become. The Supreme Court's decision is a reset, signaling a possible return to a rules-based order, but uncertainty remains. Questions linger about how quickly the changes will take effect and whether new trade battles are on the horizon. The administration has already signaled it won't back down. Officials are exploring alternative strategies, and some in Congress are calling for new legislation to clarify presidential powers over trade. This moment is the result of years of escalating trade tensions, bold political moves, and fierce legal resistance. The story of how we arrived here is as complex as the global economy itself, involving countless stakeholders and high-stakes negotiations. We'll explore the origins of these tariffs, the legal battles that led here, and the real-world consequences of today's decision. From the White House to the factory floor, every step has been marked by controversy and uncertainty. From Wall Street to Brussels, the world is reacting in real time. Markets are volatile, leaders are issuing statements, and ordinary people are watching closely to see what comes next. This story is about what's happening now, what it means for the future, and why staying informed matters more than ever. As we break down the Supreme Court's historic rebuke, we'll uncover the stakes for America, its trading partners, and the global economy. Let's break it down. To truly understand today's Supreme Court decision, we have to go back to a pivotal moment in recent American history, April 2025. That's when President Trump shocked the world by announcing the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, a sweeping set of trade restrictions that sent shockwaves through global markets and upended decades of economic policy. The administration's stated goal was ambitious: to fundamentally reshape America's trade relationships, bring back lost manufacturing jobs, and restore the country's industrial might. Officials argued that years of unfair foreign competition had hollowed out American industry, leaving factories shuttered and workers displaced. The solution, they claimed, was to impose broad tariffs on nearly all imported goods, regardless of origin. But the legal justification for this sweeping action was controversial. The White House invoked IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law originally designed for national emergencies, not for launching a full-scale trade war. Critics from across the political spectrum warned that this move represented a dangerous expansion of presidential power, setting a precedent that could be abused by future administrations. When the tariffs took effect in August, the impact was immediate and dramatic. Costs for American businesses soared, supply chains fractured, and global trading partners retaliated with tariffs of their own. The administration insisted that the economic pain would be short-lived, a necessary sacrifice for long-term gain. But for many small businesses and workers, the hardship was both immediate and severe, with benefits that remained uncertain. The policy was classic protectionism, making imports more expensive to encourage domestic production. Yet in a world where supply chains are deeply interconnected, the results were far from simple. Many American manufacturers depend on foreign parts and materials. Instead of helping, the tariffs often raised their costs, making it harder for them to compete both at home and abroad. This disconnect between policy and reality fueled a powerful backlash from the business community, with corporate leaders and industry groups demanding relief and clarity. The legal battle that followed quickly escalated, with lawsuits challenging the president's authority under IEEPA. The fight would ultimately reach the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. At stake were billions of dollars, the livelihoods of countless Americans, and the fundamental question of how far presidential power can go in shaping the nation's economy. Legal challenges erupted almost immediately after the tariffs were announced. Over 1,000 companies sued, arguing the president lacked authority under IEEPA to impose broad tariffs. They insisted Congress, not the president, controls trade policy. Lower courts sided with the businesses, setting up a Supreme Court showdown. In November 2025, oral arguments revealed the justices' deep skepticism of unchecked executive power. The core question: can a president declare an emergency to rewrite trade law? This was about more than tariffs. It was about the constitutional limits of presidential power. The companies wanted more than refunds, they wanted legal stability. Today, the Supreme Court has delivered its answer. In a historic and closely watched case, the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision has dramatically reshaped the landscape of American trade policy, sending shockwaves through Washington and around the world. The majority opinion was clear: the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, cannot be used as a broad tool for imposing economic tariffs. The justices emphasized that Congress never intended IEEPA to serve as a general-purpose trade weapon, drawing a sharp line between emergency powers and trade authority. As a result, the controversial Liberation Day tariffs, along with the threatened tariffs on Greenland, are now invalidated. Ports that had been bracing for disruption are suddenly quiet, and shipments that were held up are now being released. Across the Atlantic, America's allies, who had been preparing for a new round of trade conflict, are breathing a collective sigh of relief. European diplomats and business leaders welcome the decision, seeing it as a step back from the brink of a damaging trade war. For the multinational companies that challenged the tariffs in court, this is a massive legal and financial victory. Not only have they won their case, but the ruling opens the door for them to seek substantial refunds on tariffs already paid, potentially amounting to billions of dollars. Legal experts caution, however, that the process of claiming refunds will be complex and could take months or even years to resolve. Still, the financial stakes are enormous, and the administration's response has been one of open defiance, signaling a willingness to fight on. Behind the scenes, Treasury and White House officials are already scrambling to activate a backup plan, determined to maintain leverage in ongoing trade disputes and avoid appearing weak. President Trump, undeterred by the setback, announces he will invoke Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. This provision allows the president to impose temporary tariffs in response to balance of payments crises, giving the administration a new legal pathway to pursue its trade agenda. The battle over tariffs and trade policy is far from over. With new legal strategies in play and global markets on edge, the next chapter in this high-stakes economic conflict is just beginning. The Supreme Court's decision sent global markets soaring. Stocks surged, especially in sectors hit hardest by tariffs. The US dollar dipped, reflecting expectations of increased imports. European leaders hailed the ruling as a victory for the rule of law and a chance to rebuild trust. In Asia, the response was positive but cautious. Removal of tariffs means less uncertainty for supply chains. Yet the administration's backup plan has injected new uncertainty. Analysts are scrambling to assess the impact of potential new tariffs. The trade war isn't over. It's just shifting to new legal ground. The economic effects will ripple across the US and the world. Consumers may see lower prices as tariffs lift, easing inflation. Politically, the ruling is a blow to the Trump administration and a win for Congress's authority. The decision deepens political divides and sets up new clashes over trade policy. Some industries benefited from tariffs, but many communities suffered. The scars of the trade war, lost jobs, shuttered factories, won't heal overnight. The ruling empowers courts to check executive overreach in trade. The era of broad emergency tariffs is, for now, over. The White House is already pivoting. President Trump plans to invoke Section 122 of the Trade Act, temporary tariffs for up to 150 days. It's a short-term fix, but still a major tax on imports. The administration's strategy: buy time for a longer-term plan. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act remains in play, allowing tariffs on national security grounds. Analysts say the administration anticipated this legal loss and is shifting tactics. The legal and political battles over trade are far from finished. For businesses and allies, relief may be short-lived. Trade law experts call the ruling a landmark for the rule of law. The court has drawn a line. Emergency powers aren't a blank check for trade policy. Congress regains authority over tariffs. Economists warn that Section 122 will bring new uncertainty, and Section 232 could be used for longer-term tariffs. Political scientists see this as a classic check-and-balance moment. The ruling could shape upcoming elections and embolden Congress to clarify presidential trade powers. Internationally, the decision offers a chance to de-escalate, but tensions remain. Relief is real, but the next confrontation may be close. The world stands at a crossroads after the Supreme Court's decision. The court has struck down emergency tariffs, offering relief and reaffirming the rule of law. Markets have rallied and businesses may seek refunds, but uncertainty persists. The administration's pivot to new legal tools means trade friction isn't over. The fundamental debate over U.S. trade policy and presidential power continues. For businesses and governments, vigilance and adaptability are essential. Today's ruling shows legal checks work, but political actors will keep pushing boundaries. In our interconnected world, staying informed is more important than ever. The story isn't over. Keep watching.